Welcome to Dublin Srimad-Bhagavatam reading. The second day in the week we have a Bhagavatam class. The idea behind giving this class online is to continue, to continue the Bhagavatam readings, so that we have a class going on every day around this time. So we're not able to do it every day. We do it Monday and Tuesday, and hope that there is some benefit to be gained. The instruction is given by Prabhupada about Bhagavatam, and funny, I've just happened to be reading the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam at the moment. This is the last. This chapter 13 is the last chapter that Srila Prabhupada commented on, and one of the things he says is the importance of the Bhagavatam. So I'd like to read out a section of that. First, I'll just say the Bhagavatam prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is in Canto 10, Chapter 13. And it is just the end of verse 54, the purport. We should discuss Srimad-Bhagavatam daily as much as possible. So daily and as much as possible. And then everything will be clarified. For Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic literature. Oh, I should have checked this verse. Nigama kalpator kalitam phalam. It was written by Vyasadeva Mahamuni Krite when he was self-realized. Thus, the more we read Srimad Bhagavatam, the more its knowledge becomes clear. Each and every verse is transcendental. So the power of the Bhagavatam is there, and we need the association of other devotees who are also into Bhagavatam. And we need to approach Bhagavatam in a very submissive way, in a way that we don't know anything, but that everything is actually already given by the Supreme. And we can catch up with that, and then also then become realized ourselves. There is another section where Prabhupada explains about the association of devotees. This again, we have to take the context here. Prabhupada is just at the very end of his sojourn here on this planet. So the instructions in the final verses of the Bhagavatam have to be. Everything is significant, but this is even probably more significant. We know Prabhupada in the state that he was in. There is this video of Prabhupada. He is barely able to speak. Devotees have to hold the dictaphone to him, and he's just relating, even in a very difficult material situation. So Prabhupada says, in the material world, where one may collect funds all over the world in order to distribute food freely, yet those to whom the food is given may not even feel appreciative. So that's material welfare work. What is the value in that sense? It has some value, but in comparison, Prabhupada says, the value of Krishna consciousness, however, will gradually be very much appreciated. For instance, in an article about the temple of the Hare Krishna movement in Durban, South Africa, the Durban Post reported, all the devotees here are very active in the service of Lord Krishna, and the results are obvious to see: happiness, good health, peace of mind, and the development of all good qualities. So, those four things: happiness, good health, peace of mind, and the development of all good qualities. This is the nature of Vrindavan. Harava bhaktasya kato mahadguna. Without Krishna consciousness, happiness is impossible. One may struggle, but one cannot have happiness. We are therefore trying to give human society the opportunity for a life of happiness, good health, peace of mind, and all good qualities through God consciousness. So Prabhupada, in his very last words, explains what he wants to do and what he's trying to do. He's trying to give happiness, good health, peace of mind, and all good qualities through God consciousness. So this is Prabhupada's endearing and enduring blessing. It's endearing because that's what he's trying to do. It's Prabhupada did so many different things, but in the end, he just wants to make people like you and me happy, and he knows how it can be done, and he's given us, methods to do it, and as the Bhagavatam being one of such methods. Another important part is association, because although this attempt here is maybe a little dry, because there isn't an audience there as such who are discussing Bhagavatam, but it's done in the attempt that's what will happen, because there is life in association. We often notice Sri Rupa Prabhu was making the point the other day that in the association we tend to try to be a better person. Like, for instance, if we're on our own, we may kind of look at the Bhagavatam but then look at our internet and get stuck into something on the internet. But if there's another devotee there, we're not going to check out the result of this or whatever, or what's happening in the latest this or that. The tendency then is to act a little bit better. It may be a little material, it may be a little gross, but it has the desired result. Not always that the end justifies the means, but in a specific situation whereby we, in each other's association, we act a little better. Then that association can only be good, because the material world is very dry. I mean, you cannot go off to the Himalayas and just sit down. And how long would you last? Like, how long would you last in your bedroom sitting down meditating on whatever, and the white light or whatever you meditate on? And then if you had no more people, the example sometimes is given, like in the Bhagavatam, where there's somebody who's up in the mountains in the Himalayas, and they come down and somebody kind of brushes against them, and suddenly there's an angry reaction. So what good is that type of meditation if the result of it is that you're just harsh with other people? But association with devotees brings out the best in us, or is meant to do that. And not having that, things can be very dry. So hence again this desire for Krishna consciousness to be spread, and for devotees to have little pockets, different places, chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. Another point I'd like to make is about what Prabhupada is talking about, that the value of the Krishna consciousness movement will gradually be very much appreciated, and how it wants to bring happiness. We're making a submission to the Fingal County Council to allow us to have a place of worship, but mainly a place to worship the cows and the earth, and live in a more natural environment. And one of our contributors, Lalita, I haven't got it straight with me here now, but she makes this point that Prabhupada, back in the 50s, 60s, was saying these things which people are saying now, 60, 70 years later, that he set up the whole spiritual Krishna consciousness movement with that in mind, to live a more simple way of life, because he could see the complications of the materialistic lifestyle and how it was taking out the good energy of people. So Prabhupada again shows that he wants to do this because he wants people to be happy and to live and funny the way he says good health. Good health is in there as well. So Prabhupada he's not some kind of, a pie in the sky philosopher whose abstract philosophy no one can relate with. Prabhupada wants to have a very practical result, that people live a healthy lifestyle. So not only do they have happiness, but live a healthy lifestyle. And then also peace of mind. There is so much disturbance today. pandemic has brought a whole lot of disturbance because people are kind of stuck in their own cocoon and not able to relate with people, and therefore the people are becoming restless and they can't live in that kind of condition. So peace of mind is very important, especially because we have, peace of mind is important, but we have, a lot of disturbance basically in the mental condition of people in the world today, because of upbringing. So many reasons people are feeling perturbed. There's so many what's called samskaras, or impressions on the mind from either from previous lifetimes or from this lifetime. Which I was talking to another devotee last night, and who explained that he remembers his brother got this affection from his mother when she was about 4 years old, and after that he was completely besotted or obsessed with his mother because she gave him that affection. So the fourth thing Prabhupada says, and all good qualities through God consciousness. So Prabhupada is also trying to set up the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, a society whereby people can become happy and they can have a fully fulfilled life. So we're part of Prabhupada's mission, and we have an extraordinary mission to fulfill. We have to do this for ourselves, I could say primarily, because otherwise we get distracted by material things, by the material world, by what's going on. And devotees, they are completely absorbed in Krishna. They spend their time finding out and discovering and talking about Krishna. I shall find the verse in the Bhagavad Gita that explains that. It's chapter 9, verses 13 and 14. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivam prakatamashita bhajantya manaso gatva bhutadam avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. In the next verse, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantas cha tritavrita namasyantas chamam bhakcha nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavouring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So, if we're not doing those kind of things, always conversing about Krishna, we'll just automatically be involved in conversing about the material energy. So, Krishna consciousness means that we try to rev ourselves up as much in the morning as we can, not just in the morning, but throughout the day and throughout our lives, so that we're, the example is of the lotus. I haven't seen that many lotuses, but they're on the water, they're above the water, but they're not wet. So we're in the material world, but we're not absorbed in the material world, but we're absorbed in the spiritual world, always chanting about Krishna. Krishna is God, so it's not so easy for us to spend our time thinking of somebody else, because it's not me. I'm not in the center. What's wrong? My whole life I'm trying to put myself in the center and be the center of attraction for everybody else. But that's not our constitutional position. And we have to keep telling ourselves that. I have to keep telling myself that all of the time. Not just some of the time or half of the time or part of the time, but all of the time. But a lot of the time I'm not listening. I'm not listening to that advice, because but that's the actual position, that Krishna is the center and I'm not. That's the actual reality. So as much as I am learning about Krishna and Krishna's greatness, then the less I am likely to be in the center. Okay, I'm going to get into today's verse, because it's Srimad-Bhagavatam, as we know. Pitamaha sama samye prasade girishopama Ashraya sarvabhutanam yata devo ramashraya. This is Canto 1, chapter 12, text number 23. This child will be like his grandfather Yudhishthir or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the lord of the Kailash hill, Shiva, and he will be the resort of everyone, like the supreme personality of God Narayan, who is even the shelter of the goddess of fortune. So we're talking here about Maharaj Parikshit, the beautiful, wonderful heir to the Pandava throne and Kuru throne. And we're talking about his qualities. It's all been spoken about here. This is called the birth of Emperor Parikshit. And the first quality that's mentioned here is equanimity. Now, if anyone wants to spend a bit of time, a bit of quality time, which I was doing quality time and other things this morning, was to look at the Bhagavad Gita and see how many times the word equanimity is used. And it is always used in a very positive sense. So it means that it is a very good quality and a very important quality to develop. So now we'll see in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains why this is. Mental equanimity refers both to Maharaj Yudhishthira and to Brahma, the grandfather of all living beings. According to Sridhar Swami, the grandfather referred to as Brahma, but according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, the grandfather is Maharaj Yudhishthira himself. But in both cases, the comparison is equally good because both of them are recognized representatives of the Supreme Lord. And thus both of them have to maintain mental equanimity, being engaged in welfare work for the living being. So here's two great living entities, Lord Brahma and Yudhishthira Maharaj. And they're both engaged for the welfare of all living beings. Srila Prabhupada is engaged for the welfare of all living beings, paradukha dukhi, and as we have seen from that verse, he's trying to give human society the opportunity for a life of happiness, good health, peace of mind, and all good qualities through God consciousness. So as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we have to do the same thing. That is the goal for us. That is what we need to do. Excuse me, some water. We need to dedicate ourselves to the instruction of the spiritual master, and especially the founder Acharya. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one almighty child of the Gurus. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. And in the purport of this verse, Prabhupada talks about making the order of the spiritual master one's life and soul. So this is the instruction. I'm just taking this as a major instruction. Obviously, there's many instructions Srila Prabhupada has given, but this is one that he gave just towards the end of his life, and he explained that we should act for that reason. In that reason, all devotees here are very active in the service of Lord Krishna, and the results are obvious to see: happiness, good health, peace of mind, and development of all good qualities. So Prabhupada, he takes the lead from this reporter from Durban of what his goal is. It seemed to sum up what Prabhupada wanted. It's quite amazing. Prabhupada is just on a very difficult stage, very, very difficult stage, the transition from the so-called death till the next life. And yet he remembers this reporter in Durban, whoever he was, and he is explaining about what he sees being the result. And Prabhupada says, yes, you've got it, you've understood. This is what I want. This is what I've tried to do. And here we talk about people who are trying to two great examples, which is Maharaj Yudhishthira and Lord Brahma, of course, who's the original living entity and who set up the whole material world under Krishna's direction, so that the living entities would have an opportunity to leave the material world and go back to the spiritual world. So they're very important persons. So their actions and their mood, which is to act for the welfare of everybody, is something which we try to copy. We understand that Lord Brahma is one of the Mahajans. So what does he say? Any responsible executive agent at the top of administration has to tolerate different types of onslaughts from the very persons for whom he works. So that requires great equanimity. Anybody who ever wants to do anything realizes that once you start doing something, then someone else is going to say, no, this shouldn't be done that way, it should be done this way. No, what you're doing is wrong. No, that should be done here. No, you're not really doing this right. I have personal experience of that. And I think anybody in any position who tries to do something will find that regularly the case. It's not always that what you're doing is correct, and sometimes it's very important to hear what another person has to say. So the whole society of devotees is meant for that cooperation. Prabhupada talked about that quite a lot. But sometimes even when you're trying to help somebody, they will come back and they will criticize you bitterly. Why are you doing this? Why have you done this? His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu gave this example one time of a bird flew into his house, and Vaisheshika Prabhu tried to go around the house to try to let the bird out because the bird was caught in the house and is not obviously going to be happy in the house there. So he kept on going after the bird and trying to open the window, and the bird would suddenly get freaked out and run into it, or fly into another room. Then he'd go into the next room, and then he'd try to open the window again, and the bird would fly into the next room. And at the end, eventually the bird flew away. But he said before he flew away, the bird looked at him with a gasp. Why were you trying to kill me? You know. So when you're in that position of responsibility and you're trying to help people, the very people you're trying to help will often look on you with an evil eye, and that I've experience of that. I've been accused of things which, like for instance, I've given quite a lot of, support to this society, and then someone was accusing me of stealing money for my own villa in France or something. I mean, and that very person who was accusing me of that, I bent over backwards to try to help in different ways, and yet they came to that conclusion. I'm not looking for any sympathy here, by the way, but I just wanted to say that this happens. So you need to have equanimity of mind, and in another situation, someone spread out that. Okay, this person I was trying to, be careful, don't give any money to that person because he's keeping it for himself. And I think anybody who knows me knows I've given a lot of my own personal finance, often to my own detriment, to different causes for Krishna consciousness. So one person was saying this to another person, and this person obviously was affected by that. And it is quite difficult to tolerate somebody thinking like that about you without you kind of going to the person and saying, listen, you you listened here to me. You're thinking like this, but you don't know. That is the way the mind works. That's the way the mind from somebody from Drumcondra or Dublin works, because he has to kind of fight his own corner in a certain sense. So, but then when you become a devotee, you're trying not to let the mind function like that. And if you let the mind give in to that type of thought, then it means that you have been caught up in Kali again, and you are that person from Drumcondra, rather than the spirit soul who's trying to discover his self nature. So there are some of the difficulties that one overcomes. Now, Prabhupada goes on to say here, now, obviously this is a different situation. Brahmaji was criticized even by the gopis, the highest perfectional devotees of the Lord. The gopis were dissatisfied with the work of Brahmaji because Lord Brahma, as creator of this particular universe, created eyelids which obstructed their seeing Lord Krishna. They could not tolerate a moment's blinking of the eyes, thinking a moment in your absence seems like 12 years or more. That's the Shikshastika prayer. That's the highest level of Vipralambha that one experiences. Can't even say it. Vipralambha. So that is a very high stage, rather than being on the stage of somebody from a Gurry or from Dublin. So is trying to reach the stage of Vipralambha. But that's the Tate Nukamam Suksamikshamam. You go on tolerating your karma and still, trying to serve Krishna despite all the different obstacles. So what to speak of others who are, Prabhupada goes on to say that, so what to speak of others who are naturally very critical of every action of a responsible man. So that's quite interesting, the way that Prabhupada put that. That is, people who are naturally critical of every action of a responsible man. When you take responsibility, boom, you're responsible. You're responsible. No matter if it's good or bad, you're responsible if you take responsibility. Lord Brahma took responsibility to be the Lord of the universe. He's the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. So he's the head of the Sampradaya, but there is something that he's not in the same position as the gopis, who are fully devoted servants of Krishna. So taking responsibility in the material world is very laudable. Prabhupada wanted us to take responsibility. But at the same time, Prabhupada did give testimony to the position of the gopis, who are the highest lovers of God. And Prabhupada wanted us to become absorbed in Krishna, in God, so that we could understand the nature of God. And by discussing God and God's nature, we will get some realization of who God is. And hence our own nature will start to emerge. So if you remember, to get back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, is that my problem is that I'm trying to be the center, but that's not my constitutional position. God is actually the center, and my duty is to serve God. And to do that, then I have to understand God's great position. So in order to do that, then I have to read about God. I read about God in the Bhagavatam, and hear about God, and discuss. Prabhupada uses the words discuss, because it's not much. When you discuss, then you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that is what the value of the association of devotees is about, the association of devotees who discuss about Krishna. Because then we can all be elevated. We can all get beyond our conditioning. And we can actually experience what it is to be a servant of God. An actual person who is in the presence of God. So many places where Krishna explains what it is like to be in his presence, through the name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So we're hearing about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes and the pastimes of his devotees here. So this is why we're trying to what we're trying to do. And the next section talks about Lord Shiva, and then it talks about Lord Rama. But I'm quite conscious I want to keep these classes short, because, like myself, sometimes I can't either give a 2.5 hour class or be there for a 2.5 hour class. And this is just meant as a as a kind of a pick me up if anybody gets the time to listen to something like this, that they don't have to spend so much time. Obviously, we've got busy lives, so in that sense, I just wanted to introduce this part of the Bhagavatam at this point. So just to recap on the verse, is that this child will be like his grandfather Yudhishthira or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the Lord of the Kailash Hill, Shiva, and he will be the resort of everyone like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is even the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to take questions and so on, and in fact that we'll have a class every day. But until next Tuesday, thank you very much, the four walls, for listening. Well, maybe not listening, but at least being there. Luckily I have a four walls. And Srimad-Bhagavatam ki Jai. Hare Krsna.